I read that Star Wars is now wrapping up the whole High Republic storyline altogether. So this was a project that they launched, when was it, in 2018, I think just before COVID. It was mostly book focused. So they would publish a whole range of books for adults, for children, comic books, and it would cover not the usual Star Wars era, but it would go back in time and kind of show us the renaissance, you could say, of the High Republic, the glory time of the Jedi. And so this has been going on for a couple of years, and the Acolyte was actually kind of loosely connected to that time frame. So it happens towards the end of the High Republic. But now I read that Charles Soule, who wrote the first book in the whole series, now gets to write the final one, or actually has already written it. That one comes out in June, and that will wrap up the whole thing. And I was like, what, really? I thought this was an ongoing cash cow for Star Wars, but apparently not. Initially, I thought, oh, it must be because the Acolyte didn't do so well, but it turns out this has been the plan all along. In fact, the series has been going on for way longer than they initially wanted to do. So this was conceived as I think a 3-year project, and now it's like double the amount of time that we've gotten. Unfortunately, I don't know much about the High Republic. I really tried to get into it. So I read the first book, and I thought it was not very good. It was all over the place. It was very hard to kind of focus on, like, what is this story about? And why should I care? I just couldn't get into it. I have to say that later on, I listened to the audiobook, at least for part of it. And that was such a different experience. And it shows that one type of storytelling is not the other one. So the audiobook was almost a radio play, and it had sound effects and music, and it was just so much better. But on paper, that first book, I really couldn't get into it. And that for me was like the threshold was so high. I couldn't get into the next stories because it was still narrated sequentially. So they kind of expected you to start with that first book. But I think they could have made so much more money if they had only done at least like one movie or one TV show to kick this off, or an animated series, and then do the books. But Star Wars is such a visual story, and we are so used to picture the Star Wars that we are familiar with, but then you go back in time, but you don't show us anything. It's too much of a gap, at least for me. And I'm a pretty hardcore Star Wars fan, but for me, it didn't work. And so I'm a little bit sad to kind of have missed out on that entire part of Star Wars canon. And now I wonder if I should even try to get into it, because, I mean, yeah, maybe through the audiobooks or something, but yeah, that's why I like The Acolyte. Not because the story was particularly, good. I thought it was fine. It was entertaining, but I was hoping that it would give me more reasons to start reading the High Republic books, but it didn't. I just still don't really care that much for it. Do you like the way that Star Wars is going? It's very hard to tell because we don't really know what's next. I don't know if they're going to come up with something new after the High Republic initiative. What we do know is that they're definitely going to scale down the amount of Star Wars that we will get to see. So fewer television shows. The ones that we are going to see have been greenlit years before this whole new move. Let's not put too much money into TV series that don't do well. They have promised us movies. Of course, I'm excited about that. I kind of like that they will continue the story of Rey, and I'm pretty sure it won't just be about Rey, but I like the fact that we don't throw that entire saga into the dustbin. It's part of Star Wars to just continue to tell stories. So I like that. But I'm a bit skeptical because they've been announcing movies and then they keep canceling them again or pushing them to the next year and then to the next year. I feel like Disney has kind of been adrift when it comes to Marvel and Star Wars. They've been trying so many different things in a time that they didn't care that much about money, but now they do, and they have a lot of competition. Netflix has basically won the streaming war, so Disney has to be more intentional about what they do and what they don't do. But I have yet to see a clear direction. I like what they put out. I like it. It's Star Wars. What's not to like? but I don't feel that excitement that I had when the sequels came out. And I'm kind of longing for a new era where I can get so excited that it breaks the internet. Well, maybe I don't break the internet, but Star Wars does. Thomas says, I like the initial premise of High Republic, but the series as a whole didn't grab me. Yeah, the premise was okay. It sounded a bit too more like Star Trek than Star Wars, though, with the whole hyperspace lanes breaking and the big space, whatever. What was it? The needle, or I don't know even what it was. But anyway, it felt very Star Trek-y for some reason. But I didn't read much. Thomas read Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. I'd read that one too. Didn't care for it. Didn't care for the characters. Didn't care for the story. I love what Claudia Gray writes. She's fantastic, but this story just didn't really. I felt that there weren't enough stakes. And then what also really annoyed me about the whole High Republic initiative was that they kept switching main characters. So you don't have the time to build a relationship with certain characters. And I think that, again, was a big mistake. Star Wars is family, right? And so there needs to be a connection. Some people even laugh about that, like everybody's related. But that's what Star Wars does. And here, every story has new protagonists, and I just couldn't care less. I tried reading the comics. At one point, I took a subscription to Marvel Unlimited, and I figured, well, maybe that will help me to get into it, because it's visual, right? Those comic books were so rubbish. Oh my goodness, they were so bad. At least the first ones, because I tried to read everything chronologically, and the first ones, I was like, come on, can this please end? It was just terrible, terrible, terrible. Anyway, so that's kind of my take. I'm confident. Star Wars is here to stay, and there's so many cool people that are working on Star Wars, so I'm not worried. I'm just eager to see the next thing. I'm very excited about Andor, because Andor obviously is like next class Star Wars, that the writing is so superb. Skeleton Crew, I think, was also kind of top of their game. So we get 2 series in a row that I think are among the best we've ever seen in Star Wars. So that is encouraging. Now, let's hope that they learn from that, right?